Hello everyone and welcome to the exam tips video relevant to the March 2018 exams for paper P5, Advanced Performance Management. As you've been preparing for the exams all along, you probably have realized that this is not a knowledge-based exam. A lot of it is down to application of question-specific information into an answer. And irrespective of what topic gets tested. And I say that because the examiner for P5 specifically stated in the examiner's reports and through other information on the website that he will try to ensure that students who question spot get caught out, which therefore means you shouldn't focus on specific topics. The knowledge is anyways fairly limited. It's all about practicing your approach to questions and being able to synthesize information from the scenario in your answers and writing adequate quantity. Because if you got a 10-mark question, you've got to ensure you write 5 to 6 paragraphs of good content, relevant content. Avoid just repeating the question. Make 5 to 6 value-added paragraphs relevant to the requirement asked. A key challenge in P5 is understanding the requirement, and therefore you can't just rush into an answer. You've got to try and break up the requirement and try and spend a bit of time thinking about what does he really want and how can I use question information to communicate an appropriate answer. In terms of specific topics that you may want to put in a bit more of extra effort, as I've mentioned, this comes with a clear disclaimer that the examiner on P5 will try to catch you out. And he specifically said that. So make sure you don't just focus on these topics and ignore the others. Try to get the exam approach right, and you can probably do that through some of these topics that I mentioned. Namely, activity-based costing, which has not been tested off late. Risk and uncertainty, it has been tested recently, but it's still a core topic and can continue to figure up in exams. Evaluating the performance of not-for-profit organizations through the 3 E's and the use of league tables is another core area. Evaluation of indicators of performance, KPIs, for an organization. He could give you a list of KPIs and say, what do you think? Are these KPIs relevant? Are these indicators of performance useful? Quite naturally, they will be useful only if they tie into the objectives of the company, the mission of the company. So you should be able to assess to what extent they tie up to the mission and the objectives of the company. On similar lines, you could be asked a question on evaluation of a report. Now, yet again, the report has certain aspects that are measured. So when they say evaluate the report, it doesn't mean talk about the numbers in the report. It just means, is this information good enough? Is it catering to the audience that you're preparing the report for? Is it too detailed or does it have too little for the person you are writing to? Typically, the board is where you would be presenting your strategic reports. Is it relevant to them? Does it contain all the information they need? And yet again, that is driven by the objectives of the company. A report is useful if it contains all the information that's critical to the company. You could also be asked questions around models such as PEST and Porter's 5 forces and Porter's value chain, but the question is not just going to ask you to apply PEST or Porter's 5 forces or value chain to a company. That may be a small part of the question, but the larger part of the question would probably ask you 2 things. One, can you evaluate certain given KPIs or suggest new KPIs that could help you measure elements of these models? Say, for example, if you're talking of PEST, you could be asked to suggest KPIs to measure the political, economic, social impacts on the company, or be asked to evaluate certain indicators which are already in the question. You could say, how useful is this in measuring political, economic, social, and technological impacts on the company? Another angle the examiner could take is ask you how a model such as PEST or Porter's 5 forces helps you in managing the business. Now, remember, the question here is asking you, just to put it into context, let's think of PEST. When he says, how does PEST help you in managing the performance? He doesn't want you to do a PEST analysis, but he wants you to illustrate how pest analysis will help you overcome some of the challenges. How will you react? How will you use pests to be the source of information to identify the need to react to a certain business challenge or opportunity that comes from the political front. So you've got to talk about, you've used question information and say, here's the question info, here's a political issue, and by doing pest analysis, I'll be able to identify this, and on the back of that, these are the kind of actions I would be able to initiate if required. And that is sort of the answer when he asks you how these models are useful to manage a business. But many a time, he tends to drift to the measurement side, as I mentioned earlier, evaluation of given KPIs or suggesting new KPIs that help you measure these headings within these models. Besides this, definitely please do be familiar with the building block model and the performance pyramid, both of which are, models that can be used to measure the holistic performance, including non-financial aspects of performance. Final comment, it'll be useful for you to know the different styles of budgeting and when those budgeting styles are relevant, and also the various evaluation styles. When I say evaluation styles, whether a company is following a budget constraint approach or a non-accounting approach, these are Hopwood's management styles. It's all about evaluation of performance. What approach do you use? Are you very focused on the budget? Are you more focused on the larger picture, the non-financial performance? So you may be asked to evaluate the style of a company based on information in the question. And it's easy to tag on something like an evaluation of reward systems. He could tell you how managers and staff are getting rewarded and ask you to express your opinion on, is this reward system suitable? And that sort of ties back to one of the blocks in the building block model as well. How do you evaluate whether a reward system is good enough? Is based on whether the reward system is fair. It's based on whether the reward system is motivating. It's based on whether the reward system is based on controllable factors. So you can draw on elements from the rewards block of building block, and maybe rewards and standards are to a certain extent tied. So even if you use one or two elements from the standards block of building block to evaluate reward, it would still get some reasonable credit. But as you can see, a large part of the discussion would revolve around KPIs and evaluating existing indicators or setting new indicators. And doing all of that, please don't try to define the ratios of the indicators. Please don't try to explain in generic terms what they mean. You have to try and look at the relevance of any KPIs you suggest or given KPIs in the context of the company in the question. To conclude, make sure you review some of the recent past exams. That will give you a taste of how much of scenario information can be used to create a very meaningful answer. And as long as you carry the similar style into the exam, this not being a knowledge-based exam can be worked out to your favor if you develop a flair for using question information effectively to answer almost anything that is thrown at you. So good luck, guys. Keep prepping, and I wish you all the very best. Take care.